Hello everyone and welcome to another short video on our own devices. I'm Jin Messier, and a couple of months ago I put out a video on the history of Ciné-Kodak cameras, the first line of consumer home movie cameras, and showed you the inner workings of a Ciné-Kodak Model B from 1925. Now, also in that video, I briefly went over some of the other cameras in that series, and today I have one of them to show you. This is a Ciné-Kodak Model E from 1937. So let's have a closer look at this and let me show you how this differs from other models in the series. Like I said, the Model E was introduced in 1937 and was the most affordable of the Ciné-Kodak line, retailing for $48.50 or around $1,100 in today's money. It came in two different versions, a basic variant with a fixed focus 20mm f3.5 lens and a more advanced variant with a threaded adapter for mounting different lenses. The example we have here is the latter model. Like all the previous cameras in the Ciné-Kodak series, the Model E can take up to 100 feet of 16mm film, which use an innovative co-axial arrangement where the supply and uptake reels are mounted on the same spindle. The Model E uses a more conventional co-planar arrangement, resulting in this distinctive staggered elliptical film compartment. Interestingly, Kodak advertised this form factor as allowing someone wearing a wide-brimmed hat to easily use the viewfinder without knocking said hat off. To open the film compartment, we twist this latch and pull the side panel off. Now, aside from the reel arrangement, the internal mechanism is nearly identical to that of the Model B. So if you want a breakdown of how that works, please check out my previous video on that camera, link in the description. Now, the only thing worth noting here is this hinged arm which sits against the supply reel and measures the amount of footage remaining. This is connected to a pair of dials that we can see through this little circular window on the right side of the camera, as well as through the viewfinder. Now, on the outside of the side panel, we have a universal exposure guide, which is a rotating disc that allows you to select the correct film, aperture, and shutter speed settings for any given subject or scene. And this has a little reversible paper card that fits into this frame, this one calibrated for Kodachrome film. One side shows different types of daylight from shade to bright sun, while the other shows the same levels, but with a Kodak number 808 Ratten filter fitted over the lens. So for example, if we are shooting a normal subject in hazy sun at a normal frame rate of 16 frames per second, then we would set our aperture to f5.6. Now, speaking of frame rate, this selector switch on the right side allows you to switch between three different speeds: normal or 16 FPS, intermediate or 32 FPS, and slow or 64 FPS. We also have our spring motor winding knob, a switch to start and stop the camera mechanism, and a 1/4-20 mounting screw for a tripod on the bottom. Unlike previous models of Ciné-Kodak, which had flip-up iron sights, the Model E has a coaxial direct viewfinder. Unfortunately, my camera is not really able to see through the viewfinder, but if we did, we would see two arrows near the top of the frame. This is for correcting parallax between the viewfinder and the lens when shooting close-ups. When shooting a subject 2 feet away, we align the top of the frame with the upper right-hand arrow, and when shooting 4 feet away, we align it with the lower left-hand arrow. There is also a little window on the left that displays the remaining footage so the user can keep track during filming. And finally, we have our lens, which is a 25mm f1.9 Kodak Anastigmat. This has two adjustable rings, one for focus, which goes from 2 feet to infinity, and another for aperture, which goes from f1.9 to f16. This can be threaded out and replaced with a variety of other lenses. Each lens came with a separate adapter lens that threaded over the viewfinder to match the viewfinder's field of view to that specific lens. However, Kodak's 6-inch f4.5 telephoto lens could not be used with the Model E since its field of view was too narrow for the viewfinder to be practically adapted. Now, at this point, I have to apologize to all of you. I was fully intending to take this camera apart and show you the inner mechanism, but unfortunately, Kodak made that extremely difficult. The mechanism is attached to this inner panel, and to release it, you need to undo all these screws, which is straightforward enough. Unfortunately, you also need to remove the film counter arm, whose screws are so tight and at such an awkward angle that I wasn't able to loosen them without risking stripping the heads. Also, the spring winding knob needs to be removed, and this is held on with a friction pin, which is also so tight that I can't remove it without risking damage to the camera. Like so many products, this was clearly only designed to be maintained by specialists using specialized tools, which unfortunately I simply don't have. Anyway, about the only other thing worth mentioning about the Ciné-Kodak Model E is that there are various versions floating around with electric rather than spring drives. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find a lot of information on these. Some sources say that they were bank security cameras, so say the staff would turn them on during a bank robbery. and others that they were specially made for the United States Army Air Corps for use as gun cameras. But if any of you have any more information on these, let me know and I will add that to the description of this video. And if you want to learn more about actual gun cameras, please check out my 2 videos on the subject, link in the description. And that, dear viewers, is a brief overview of the Ciné-Kodak Model E. Now, I'm actually starting to become fascinated with this particular line of cameras, and so I will continue to cover the various models as I come across them. Until then, however, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time in another video where we'll look at yet more cameras and other fascinating devices just like this one. I'm Jin Messier from Our Own Devices. Have a great day.